my name is Anne-Marie Pearman and I am joined today by Charli Wall. Charli, when she was 21, she had an unfortunate personal tragedy where her brother was killed and her father seriously injured due to a motorbike accident, and she became his carer. From then on, she trained in mental health and addictions. She set up an addiction counselling centre at Addenbrooke Hospital in the UK. She's a physical fitness and health expert. She specialises in female health. She's a trained yoga teacher, and her current work is involved in the 3 principles and understanding. And welcome today, Charli. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm just going to start by asking you when you came across the 3 principles understanding, and if your life changed in any way after coming across the understanding.
My life changed completely. Completely, but not initially. When I first came across the principles, I had just lost my father, and I'd sold everything in one of my sort of moments of madness, probably in grief again. And I was looking for a coaching course because at that point I had a successful fitness business in Cambridge. And I was looking for a coaching course, and I just happened to stumble across Jamie Smart's clarity coaching, but hadn't heard of the principles, didn't know anything about them. And which is interesting because I've studied psychology and, you know, been in psychiatry. And anyway, so yeah, I hadn't heard of them, didn't know anything about them, wasn't told about them at my pre-coaching interview. And at the time, I was chronically anxious to the point where I moved from Cambridge to a place in Norfolk in a little house that I was renting, and didn't go out, you know, literally didn't work, didn't go out, sold everything. So I had money, but I couldn't really socialize, and I had PTSD, and so I was on Zoom, and it was just, I couldn't, you know, it was a black box Zoom, not hi, not like what we used to post pandemic, but I couldn't speak on Zoom. And they started talking about something that was completely alien to me. And I thought, my goodness, what on earth are they talking about? I thought this was a coaching course, and they all looked really happy. And I began to get very suspicious that I joined some sort of weird cult and, you know, giving my money away to some loon. Anyway, so I just didn't really understand it. And I was so anxious that I couldn't hear. And I was fortunate enough to go to Tenerife on the retreat to see Jan and Chip Chipman, who you probably heard of. If you haven't heard of them, whoever listening, they're like first generation principles teachers. And it was the first time I'd been in a group of people for over a year, which was, you know, made me very anxious at the time. But I sat there and did it. And I spoke to Jan and Chip, and something began to shift. I don't know what it was. I can't articulate what it was. But something began to shift in me, and I began to start to listen from a different place, not from my, I don't know what the hell they're talking about place, and not from my completely broken place. But it wasn't until another, I would say 6 to 8 months, where I really had my first kind of new thought, which changed everything for me, which was, oh my goodness, you've been doing all of these things because you didn't know you were safe. And that literally changed everything for me. What I realized in that moment, it was like a little domino effect that just went prrr. I had been chronically anxious and hadn't even known it. I was aware of the PTSD, but I had no idea about the chronic anxiety. I would not have said to you I was anxious. I would have said, well, they say I'm a control freak, but that's their problem, not mine. So my life began to unravel. I started to see people again. I showed up on screen. I started to go to the meetings in London with Jamie, you know, as part of the program. I didn't have to be online. I could start speaking. I started coaching. I started coaching my own groups. I didn't live in fear. And one of the things that, so I was very busy in my anxiety. So I would, my day was run in time schedules. And I was very anxious if it wasn't on those time schedules. I lived my life like that. Now, at that point of the principles, I had got myself a dog. My son was no longer living at home at that point. He was in Corfu working and living. But I realized, one of the things I realized is that my dog had become my son replacement and my father replacement, basically like the two rolled into one. So I was feeding my dog at a certain time and I was walking my dog at a certain time. And if I couldn't do that, I was getting anxious about it. And I realized, like, you don't have to do that. The dog doesn't care when she gets walked, or, you know, sometimes she's not even hungry when you put the food down. It's like, it's not your child. And the irony was that when my son left home, he was 4 days before his 17th birthday. I'd been doing that from birth to 17, that he had to eat at 5 o'clock. I mean, poor thing. So I realized that was one of the things that I did that I didn't have to do. I think the biggest thing for me was the post-traumatic stress disorder. And the way that manifested for me was that I had chronic flashbacks. And the flashbacks were about my brother and father's accident, identifying my brother's body, and looking after my father for the remaining 24 years of his life. And that many times that was deeply traumatic and painful for us both. And what I realized, one of the ways that I would see a motorbike, because they had a motorbike accident, and I would see a motorbike whilst I was driving, and I'd sort of go off into this, what I now know to be like a movie that I was in. But it's called flashback in psychiatry. And I would sort of go into this daze, and then it would make me anxious, and it would, you know, take me a while to snap out of it. And it could be whether I was awake or asleep, you know, dream, nightmares, or awake. But I suddenly realized one day I was driving, I saw this motorbike, and this is going to sound so simple, and it's so hard to articulate this, but I literally had a thought which said, you don't have to follow that thought anymore. And I can't tell you how, how freeing that has been for me after, 26 years, I think, at that point of being scared of that memory, or, whatever it was, like that thought carried through time. And to not have that, and the anxiety that I didn't even know that I had, the time schedules, I bit my nails, I had eating disorders, I drank alcohol, I picked my face, my hair would fall out. I mean, I cannot tell you how different my life is because of it, but it wasn't like that. It was like that first one, then that second one, and then it sort of went and it's still unfolding now. And I think the other thing is, I no longer feel that, like, when you were reading out, like, this is your qualifications, this is your experience, one of my things was, I'm a workaholic, I need to get the next qualification, the next qualification, the next qualification. I don't feel the need to do that anymore. So that might be the end. If you interview me in 10 years, that might just still be it. So yeah, it's had a deeply profound impact on my life.
Just love listening to your story. It's the first time I've actually felt really emotional listening to somebody speak on this. But yeah, it's like a stack of cards sort of thought fell down when you had that insight about the motorbike. How many years have you been in the understanding now?
Well, I started the coaching course in September 2017. I couldn't hear anything really. I went to the retreat in May 2018, and it was February 2019 that I had that very first insight about I didn't know I was safe. So not long, really. Not long at all, a little kind of a youngster really, but I feel very blessed to have had those two quite profound, life-changing new thoughts. I feel really lucky. I feel in some way I was meant to be here on this path. When I identified my brother's body, he was gone. His body was there, but he was gone. And I was 21 and he was 18. And I began this search for, where's he gone? Right? I couldn't understand it. And then I remember when I gave birth to my son, this gust of life, this gust of energy kind of flew out of me, this force of nature. It was the most amazing experience, but it was a similar depth of power that I felt when my brother wasn't there. So this sort of life and death piece that I experienced at 21 and 28, which, you know, when I kind of, what I understand about the principles now in that, like, it's happening for us. I was never in control anyway. I've got a connection to something so profound that my brother and father haven't gone anywhere. They've just changed form. And I trust that. I trust, you know, one of the things that when I look back on my life is that I was an addictions counsellor and I quit that job. I was burnt out, let's just say, single mum, drinking too much, early 30s. And I left the job and I trained to be a personal trainer, and I got the idea, and I used to just say I was really lucky that I got this idea. I got this idea to create a boot camp for women only in Cambridge. There was no boot camps around at the time. And I thought, well, I can take my son with me. I'm a single mum, he can come with me. And that one idea led me to 10 years later being able to sell that business. And when I think about that, that's like intuition, inspiration comes from within. I found Jamie's course through fluke or Facebook marketing. I'm going with fluke. But I saw something and now I teach it and I love it, and my community is growing and I'm changing lives myself, and that's not on me. You know, I would never have thought, I just would never have thought that I could have this experience, because I was so convinced of my brokenness, of my fragility. And now I'm convinced that no one is broken, because if I can experience this, then everyone can.
Do you still specialise in women's health and women's coaching?
I do. It's kind of, life has invited me to do it. It's just kind of been invited by life. So yeah, I have a female I have a female community on Facebook, which is free, like a support group. I have a little circle group of women, which is like a monthly membership, and we have 3 principals teachers always come once a month to talk to them, and I do group coaching, but I do one-to-one with women, and I run retreats. But I've experienced so much in my life, both mentally and physically, and I've trained in those modalities. So as a woman now in the third age, officially, that's the new sort of exploration and learning. But yeah, I love working with women, and I love seeing their courage and their bravery and their uniqueness, and they can't see it often. And I love creating communities, I love creating that connection where women support each other, and most women, in my experience, feel alone in their pain, feel alone in their shame. And we're all the same. We're all the same. So if I can help just one woman know that, then it's been worth this journey.
You used a phrase there which I hadn't heard before, but I think I know what you mean. But you talk about the third age. Now you're in the third age. I hadn't heard that expression before. Where does that come from, or what does that mean?
It means postmenopausal. So obviously women, if you've got like the fertile years, and that lasts up until, most women are, it's average, but I don't like to really use that, but most women are in their early 50s when they go into that kind of phase of no periods. I was early because of the amount of stress that I had in my life for so long. So mine started in my early 40s. The perimenopause, which is like, irregular bleeding. So the third age woman is more intuitive, is less, well, I hope, less worried about what other people think, less worried about what they think about, like this kind of less concerned with the exterior and more concerned with what goes on in here. So the intuition that I work with in myself and with others, which of course in through principles language we call wisdom, right? It's that kind of wiser part of you, the part of you that's always been there behind the scenes, that often as women we override because we're busy, we override because we're looking after families, we're cooking, we often at this age we're like the sandwich generation, we've got kids, we've got parents, like so I love that intuitive part, and I don't want to override that anymore. And in the women that I work with, it's encouraging that deeper connection to all that is nourishing for women: movement, food, sleep, rest, trusting themselves. And it's really hard, I think. It's very hard if you've not been used to taking care of yourself. Women take care of others a lot. I mean, I am using generalizing, but there's a lot of sort of putting ourselves at the bottom of the pile. So yeah, that's what I understand to be about the third age. It's only because I'm doing this program called The Third Age Woman. But in old terms, it was the crone. It's the crone.
Yeah, I think the third age sounds a lot nicer than the crone. It's like in old language, I'd be considered a spinster or an old maid, and I don't like that term at all. I don't know what to call myself in modern language, but I'm definitely not calling myself a spinster or an old maid. So,
well, I think the language that we have an aversion to now is from patriarchy, because women aren't meant to be, powerful in their world, and we are very powerful. And and so are men. This isn't about men. That's not about that. It's about the language, you know, the films, the story, you know, the fairy tales. It's always the woman or the step woman, you know, there's step woman, they get killed, and, you know, like the old maid, the spinster, the one on the shelf, all of that. That's just not true. So you can be and call yourself whatever you want to. You don't have to associate with those words. But I don't mind the crone, because it's not a word I associate with what the patriarchy want me to think about it. I want to think about it as I'm coming into a very powerful phase in my life, which I kind of always had. I just didn't know it because I was distracted by caring for my young son and my father, and working and drinking myself into oblivion most weekends. So yeah, there's something very magical about this age, if you're open to seeing that possibility. No one's life is scripted.
I mean, I don't know whether it's 3 principles, because I came across the 3 principles similar time to you, 2017, or whether it is getting older, but I definitely feel a lot more comfortable in my own skin than I did sort of 20, 30 years ago. So
yeah, maybe it's both.
And what comes to mind is that old phrase, youth is wasted on the young, as well. You wish you'd known now, or known at 20 what you do know now.
I know how much power we had. I know. Like putting blusher on, like I had those cheeks back then.
Yeah, or shader or bronzer or whatever, yes. Highlighter on the cheekbones.
But I think there's something very magical about this age too, if maybe it's not wasted on the young, and maybe it's just meant to be the power that we have at this age is, maybe it's for us now, without, you know, most people either haven't got children or my children have grown up, and it's our time without all of that. What do I look like? Are my boobs big enough? Is my bum small enough? You know, like the stuff that keeps us dumbed down, which of course has been created by patriarchy anyway. And if we buy into that now, we'll be all like, oh my gosh, like so the eyebrow thing, I don't get the eyebrow thing, right? My sister, I hope she doesn't listen to this, but she does makeup. She works in makeup. I'm not makeup. So she's like, you really have to sort your eyebrows out, Chan. I'm like, my eyebrows? What the hell? Why do I have to sort out my eyebrows now? Like, isn't life difficult enough? So I've got this little bloody brush. I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, it's so tight. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up because it's just another thing we have to do to look, you know, like, oh my God, we have to look a certain way. I'm like, no, I'm not doing my eyebrows. I'm going to let my hair grow and I'm going to let it go grey, and I don't care anymore.
Oh, this letting your hair go grey thing. I started going grey when I was 19. And the reason I'm so blonde now is basically because it's white up to about there, and then it's sort of brown. And I'm just not brave enough to let it go grey. And I know it's vanity and I know it's ego, but
no. That becomes a personal choice.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's vanity or ego. We're told it is. By whom? Probably patriarchy again. You should embrace whatever you want to embrace. Like, I'm all for like doing what makes you feel comfortable, right? My mum's, you know, I said to her, I'm thinking of just, you know, letting my hair grow grey, because it's the first time since the accident that my hair's not been falling out over the last few years, so I can grow it, right? Which is a miracle for me. She was like, you can't possibly go grey. So I was like, well, I'm going grey just for that reason.
It's funny, it doesn't matter how old you get, you always want to go against what you
So yeah, but also it is, I do absolutely and wholeheartedly believe that whatever choice you make from here you know, should be your choice, and it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't matter. If you're happy, then that's what matters. Like if I decide I'm going to color my hair again, then I'll color it. You know, who cares? It's my hair, and hair changes. It's like the world of form, right? This is the conversation I have with a lot of my young girls, and you know, they struggle with food issues and body image issues, and I think, like, you know, trying to sort of explain that your body's going to change, it's going to keep changing, everything's changing all the time, and what doesn't change is what's in here. And I no longer care about this, and I spent so many years caring about it, and it didn't do me any good. In fact, I lost my hair because I was, you know, so worried about it. So you've gone on mute.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh.
Yes, I was just thinking when you're talking about eyebrows as well. No, we're going off topic a bit, but I just can't. I'm so with you on eyebrows. What's all this fashion about eyebrows at the moment? You've got to have thick, drawn-on eyebrows.
I know. I don't know. They look like slugs to me, and that's what I mean. I hope my sister doesn't hear this, because like, you've got slugs on your face, Vicky. But that's what she loves, right? She absolutely loves that. It works for her. It's not me, but that's the uniqueness of all of us, right? If you like slugs for eyebrows, that's
just fashion, though, isn't it? And it's always, I know men have sort of fashion. I mean, like, it's a thing about beards at the moment. All men have to have beards, and I don't like beards either, but that's another story.
Oh, I do.
Mind a bit of stubble, bit of Miami Vice going on, that's okay. But, you know, that's because I'm back in the 80s in my head. I still think I'm a teenager, so.
Oh my gosh. So I'm a beard and tattoo girl. But what this points to is, again, you know, is it off topic? Isn't it off topic? Like, it's all the same, because fashion changes, right? Now, we might have a sort of preference for what we like, of course, because we're unique, but it doesn't detract from who we actually are. Eyebrows or no eyebrows, grey hair or no grey hair, like that's the sort of wrapping, isn't it? You know?
And it's all judgment as well, isn't it? So, yeah.
But I think a lot of that stuff comes from, again, the media, or you know, the things that keep women in particular small, and men are coming into that at the moment, like designer stubble. You know, a lot of men have eyebrow stuff now, and you know, it's all about like preening. You know, let's not be ourselves, let's all look the same. And what we're saying is, you're unique, you're amazing, you are special, you are good enough, you're all good enough, and none of that stuff actually matters. And if you spend your time, you know, like Sid Banks said, the best quote I love, and there's many, but the one I really love is like, self-concern isn't thinking less of myself, it's thinking of myself less. And that was the one that really kind of like got me in my heart, because I was like, yeah, you've been thinking of yourself forever. It's time to stop.
I had my own insight around that, which is around depression. So I was off sick for 3.5 months back in 2017 with anxiety and depression. But after I came across the 3 principles, I think I just became more aware. And I don't want to denigrate anybody who's got depression, because, you know, I've gone through it myself. But it's like severe I can't think of the word now. Almost like self-obsession or self-involvement. I'm not sure whether that's the word I wanted to use, but it's an extreme form of thinking, being self-absorbed. And I don't mean that in a harsh way, but if you stop thinking, and I spent all my life up until 2017 in my head, and if you come out of your head and just see what's around you and be more present, then you probably won't have the mental health issues that you have got if you are suffering.
And I think the other thing that I kind of see around depression myself is that people just need a rest. They need a deep rest from that pretense and that self-concern. Like there's a message in there from your soul, which is you just need to rest. And I've had when I was nursing, when I was an addictions counsellor, I had 2 lots of 6 months off. And I just didn't know. I just didn't know that I was okay. I you know, and that was good. I needed to rest. I did rest, but we don't know any different. No one's taught us. You know, it's like Jack Pransky, isn't it? Somebody should have told us. You know, you don't have to think about yourself all the time because you're okay and you're not alone. And we're all going through the same thing. Everyone's in their head worrying about themselves. And it's that's why I'm on a mission, probably much like yourself, to try and make people's life easier.
Just wondered if Sharon and Claire, who've joined us, had anything they'd like to ask or any comments for Charli.
Hi, Charli.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you. You just like, I don't have to say anything because you said it all. I was laughing between the eyebrows and just all of it, the body image and eating and that's awesome. It's so neat to, you know, when you're not the only one. You just articulated it really well because I've gone through all that. Sometimes I laugh because I'll be like, look at I'll show to my boyfriend and we'll like the eyebrow thing. Like, we're getting old. We're just like our parents were when they complained about the long hair and then I let them. Sometimes it's just like, no, that's wrong. You know, I get a kick over some of the colored hair that's really, you know, couldn't you have gone the bright pink, not the turquoise? You know, I mean, I think that in my head. So thank you. And the post-menopause thing, and you hit the nail on the head for me several times. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, you're so welcome. Oh, good. Yeah. Thank you for coming along, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's nice to see a little smiley face. Oh my gosh, it's my Claire.
I didn't know it was me.
No, I just thought it was a Claire who popped in.
So I've missed. I literally just came in for Slugs for eyebrows. I literally yes, I've been trying to get Slugs for eyebrows, but they honestly look like slugs. I cannot get my nice brow definition going, so I sort of give up. And like you say, it's okay. It doesn't matter. I think that I've come quite a long way with how I look and just accepting it since I've started talking to you, Charli. But there is still quite a lot. There's a lot going on that I'm still, still trying to work on, trying to understand, trying to get insight, needing to get insights around. I didn't hear the menopausal thing, so I think I'll have to listen back because that may well apply. I might find that useful. But talking about the depression and getting out of your head and not being so self-absorbed, I completely get that. The point that's really difficult is when you don't know that you're there. So when you've got so much going on in your head, for example, you're working and you're thinking about getting the car serviced and getting the dog to the vet and it's all happening all at once, then becoming present isn't quite so easy. And that's So yeah.
But maybe it's not meant to be. I think the thing is, I don't know about you, Anne-Marie, but like if I'm really in it, I'm not going to see that I'm in it. It just looks and feels very real and very personal and very hard. And then it, you know, that might last for however many days. I don't know, because I'm different to you. It doesn't feel like it lasts as long for me anymore, but it still feels, when I'm in it, real, you know. But I think maybe the difference between me and you only is that I have less pressure on it moving.
You just reminded me of a little personal story from early on in the pandemic where I got really up into my head about, can't even remember what it was now, but I took offence at something. And you know the phrase, sleep on it? So I thought, right, I won't react, I will sleep on it. So I slept on it, and at 5 o'clock the next morning, I thought, right, I've slept on it, and then I reacted. And and I was on a call with, as part of Beyond Recovery people, I was on a call with them. And Derek Mason, who's one of the directors of Beyond Recovery, who, for those people who don't know, he spent time in prison and he's basically turned his life around thanks to Beyond Recovery's work. And he was talking about the phrase sleep on it. Oh, sleep on it just means get your mind to settle. And I didn't think about it. I took it really literally. I thought it literally meant go to sleep, wake up, and then you react. That's how I took that phrase to mean. So I don't know. I don't know why I'm sharing that story, really. It just came to mind while you were talking.
Yeah, it's funny because I've just been doing, I'm redoing the meditations, Claire, on the Freedom program. So I run an 8-week program, Claire's done it, and I'm redoing the meditations, and I've just been doing one around reactivity. And it's that reactivity, which is automatic, and it's a lower brain reaction. And, you know, like we are like the experiencer, we are the observer, we are the witness of it. But if we don't know that, we'll go with our automatic response. It's familiar, it's automatic, and then we have judgment on that reactivity. So then we have another layer of thinking on it. And if I can just put a pause on, and I know it's like I'm still adding on, but I'm making it a process almost. I'm making it, you know, something to do. But again, because I take it less seriously, if I know I'm in a low space, I either do go to bed and just think, oh, am I allowed to swear? Oh, bollocks, like, God, you know, everyone can do one, go to bed, and like I say, it will pass in the end. I do know that it will pass in the end, but equally, I also know very deeply, Claire, there's nothing wrong with me. And I think that might be the other difference. You still think there's something very wrong with you, and there isn't.
I'd like to say that I know that on an intellectual level, but I'm not even sure I'm there with that either. It's a deeply ingrained belief, and I know it's there, but it's unlearning that belief, trying to believe something else instead. Maybe one day.
Yeah. Well, I believe. We'll sing. Yeah, but a thought is a thought is a thought. A belief is just a thought carried through time. It can have the same impact. It can feel powerful or power, you know, less. Sorry, my son's just coming in now. What I would say to you and anyone else who feels like that's a sticking point for them is just hold it as something loose. Don't hold it so tightly. It doesn't define you. and you have been through so much in your life, as we all have, and we're still here. We've still got a little twinkle in our eyes. That's the thing to hold on to, not the narrative or the story that there's something wrong, because that's not true. It doesn't serve you to keep thinking that. But sometimes we all feel that. So you're not alone, basically. Getting into a song now, aren't we? Anyway, it's lovely to see you, Claire, and lovely to meet you, Sharon.
That Michael Jackson song, "You Are Not Alone," because I've got a song in my head now.
Yeah, it is.
Head all the time.
You are not alone. That's one I can't sing.
I can't do either, but we could end doing that, couldn't we? A quartet, Michael Jackson quartet.
Oh my gosh, this is going to go on your YouTube channel. They'll be like, who are these women?
The Wall Four. Got the Jackson 5, we can be the Wall Four.
Yeah, the Principals Quartet.
Because we're women. We're a four.
Absolutely.
Well, you did that growl well. I won't try and do that. You've got the hair for it as well.
Yeah, embracing my wild woman with my very thin eyebrows.
Oh dear. I don't know what else to say.
Well, hopefully we've made some people laugh, which is what it's about, right?
Exactly. Yes. Definitely. That's an antidepressant in itself, being able to laugh.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And also, like, just to go back to the original question, there's no way I would have been able to do this and been, just free to make jokes or anything. So that's another huge change. On screen, Claire, not a boot camp. So does that feel complete?
I think that does feel complete. It feels like a natural end, and my dog's starting to bark, so I think she's saying yes, that's the end. Thank you.
Cool.
And anyway, thank you for joining me, Charlie and Claire and Sharon, and I'll be putting this on YouTube soon with all the relevant links to the different Facebook groups.
Thank you very much. I'll send them over as well, just in case. But no, I've loved it. I love these conversations. It's a real honour to be asked, and it's a real honour to meet two new women. So thank you very much.
Hopefully see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you tomorrow, Claire. Bye.